special disclaimer. In case any of Nancy Ng's family or friends should happen to be watching, I want you to know I mean absolutely no disrespect to you or Nancy. This video is whispered and there will be some microphone brushing, and that is because it is an ASMR video. If you would like to learn more about ASMR, please search it on Google. I also want to be very clear in stating that absolutely no one in this case has been charged with a crime, and everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Hi guys, welcome back to True Crime Time ASMR. I'm Nicole. Thank you so much to everyone who has tuned in to this channel. I truly appreciate you. And if you're new here and you enjoy Whispered True Crime, please consider subscribing to the channel. I post 2 times a week, on Monday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I recommend using headphones if you would like to hear the gentle mic brushing. Now let's get right into tonight's case. This is a current case and it is still ongoing. Tonight we are heading on down to Guatemala. Shout out to all my friends in Guatemala. This is the case of Nancy Ng, and it took place in 2023. So let's get started with some background information on Nancy. Nancy Ng is a Chinese American woman who was born in Monterey Park, California in 1994. She is the eldest of 4 siblings and is part of a very close-knit and loving family. By the fall of 2023, 29-year-old Nancy was working as a behavioral interventionist aide at Garfield Elementary School in Alhambra. She loved her job and truly cared about the children that she worked with. She had been a yoga enthusiast for about 4 years. According to her family, in addition to her love of yoga, she also enjoys, quote, traveling, hiking with her family, and cuddling with her cat. She has a kind heart, a big smile, and can talk to anyone about anything and often everything. She's a caring daughter, a loving sister, and a supportive friend, end quote. In 2022, she had gone on a yoga retreat to Guatemala. It was the Be the Change yoga retreat, which was hosted by her local yoga studio, the one that she attended, which was called Hot 8 Yoga in Pasadena. She had had such a wonderful time that she decided to go again in 2023. So 10 of them, including herself and the instructor, whose name was Eddie, were going to be heading to Guatemala for a week beginning on October 14th, 2023. Now, it was said by everyone that Nancy got along well with the instructor Eddie and they were friends. Not to say that there was anything inappropriate. I just want you to know that they were friends. There was no ill will between them, no animosity that anyone was aware of. So, just to let you know a little bit about violent crime such as extortion, murder, armed robbery, carjacking, narcotics, trafficking, and gang activity are common in Guatemala. Local police may lack the resources to respond effectively to criminal incidents, resulting in a low arrest and conviction rate. If you decide to travel to Guatemala, then it goes on to list a few things. The only one I pulled out that was applicable here was this. When traveling to Lake Atitlan, which is where they went, use certified tourist providers and travel between villages on the lakeshore by chartered boat, as perimeter paths pose a serious crime risk and are not easily accessible by emergency services. Hiking in the area, while popular, is best undertaken with the assistance of a local guide to ensure safety, as criminals are known to target some routes. Okay. So, as part of the retreat, there was a planned day of kayaking on Lake Atitlan on October 19th, 2023. Now, this is a very popular tourist attraction. The water has a depth of more than 1,100 feet, and it is the deepest lake in Central America. It is also considered one of the most beautiful lakes in the world. The lake basin is volcanic in origin. A huge crater was formed by an eruption 84,000 years ago, and then it filled up with water afterwards. This lake is approximately 18 kilometers wide and 10 kilometers long, so it is enormous. Okay, so they set out that morning at 10:30 a.m. and there is video of the 10 of them setting off in their kayaks, and you can even see Nancy waving happily to the camera. Now, later that same day, Nancy's father got a phone call from Eddie, the yoga instructor, saying that Nancy has disappeared. She went missing during the kayaking. She will not be returning, and he has no further information because he did not witness what exactly happened on the lake. That was literally all he could tell Nancy's father. And in the blink of an eye, the entire world had turned upside down for the Ng family. There they were in California, completely helpless, not knowing what had happened. No one has any information. And their beloved daughter and sister is presumed dead at this time. After having gone out for a very, very fun vacation that she had been looking forward to, this is what had happened to her. When the others would later return from their trip, no one would tell them anything. There had been one woman who supposedly was actually with Nancy when she went missing in the water, and that woman would not get in contact with them. She was completely silent. The family asked Eddie if he had some photos. They knew he had taken photos of the group, including Nancy. Before she went missing, they asked for these photos just so they could see Nancy on what they presumed to be her last days on Earth. He would not give them the photos. Now anyway, getting back to the disappearance. So immediately the next morning, morning after Nancy had gone missing, so this is October 20th, the group left Guatemala very early in the morning, 6 a.m. Now, some reports say that they changed the date of their return so that they could get out of there quicker, and other reports say that that was when they were supposed to leave. Anyway, and Nancy's hotel room was found to have been ransacked, and that is simply believed to be because Eddie was looking for a contact number, to call her family. So on October 21st, now remember she disappeared on the 19th, the first air search of the lake is conducted by the Guatemalan authorities, and they did not find her. They gave up after 72 hours. I believe that is their standard, but I'm not sure. That same day, a GoFundMe account was opened up by the partner of Nancy's sister. Her name is Nikki Ng, and her partner's name is Jared Lopez. He opened up the GoFundMe on their behalf. He was trying to raise money to get a private search team to find Nancy. And they hired the Black Hawk Helicopters search group. On October 23rd, this was written on a GoFundMe update. Quote, "The Naval stopped conducting boat searches today around noon, as that was the 72 mark since the original police report was filed on 10/19/23. Moving forward, we have hired boat companies/drivers to conduct the searches. Weather permitting, the boat searches will take place from 05:30 to 1700 daily, beginning 10/23/23. We are asking for volunteers in the area to participate in the boat searches and be an extra set of eyes on the boat. We understand that this is a big ask. Any amount of your time, even 2 hours, would be greatly appreciated. Please contact us if you're interested in volunteering. Thank you. In the meantime, we are still working on getting submarine sonar services involved." On October 25th, so now this is 6 days that she's been missing, her family reached out through an email to the woman who had been with Nancy when she went missing. This is the first time they reached out to her at all. And they sent, a very polite email asking for her information, basically, and she didn't respond. On October 31st, they reached out to her again, so that is 6 days after the first email. Once again, no response. November 9th, Black Wolf Helicopters conducted a search of the area using dive and boat teams and 2 helicopters. They also had an extensive ground and coastal search using canines. But sadly, they did not find anything of value. And the fact that they didn't have the details about exactly where they were in the lake when she went missing made it so much harder. If this woman, the witness, could have said, "This is where in the lake we were," they could have looked in that area or upstream of it, or, they would have information. But no, they had no information, so they are searching this huge lake. Now, the head of the Black Wolf Helicopters search team really wanted to get some information from both Eddie, the instructor, and this witness. And since he was getting nowhere in just nicely asking them, Blazek is the woman's name, and Eddie Ramada. Now, Christina Blazek is actually a San Bernardino County public defender, so she's an attorney. So prior to November 13th, the public did not know their names. Now, this is what was written in the press release. Quote, "On behalf of the Ng family and legal counsel, the criminal case has released to our search team that the two persons of interest who have been proven to be part of this group at the time of the incident has, as of this date, not yet been forthcoming with Guatemalan authorities. These two individuals are Eduardo Eddie Ramada, the organizer of the Be the Change retreat that took place between the 14th and 20th of October 2023. Christina Marie Blazek, the witness who was with Nancy on the water at the time of her disappearance, and a licensed attorney and deputy public defender at the law offices of the public defender San Bernardino County. Due to the high risks imposed upon the search and rescue teams, it is imperative that these individuals provide their witness testimonies. If they are unwilling to speak with Guatemalan authorities, then as the search team coordinator, I personally request that they contact helpfindnancy@gmail.com at the earliest opportunity to help us ascertain the circumstances surrounding Nancy's disappearance so we can find Nancy and bring her home." End quote. So immediately the internet knows who these people are, so you know what happens, and TikTok has been all over this case. They are doing all kinds of, web sleuthing to try to figure out what went on here. So the very next day after that press release, it's November 14th, Christina Blazek issued a statement through her attorney named Christopher Gardner. Now, according to him, she had given the following account of what happened to both the Guatemalan police and the FBI. So he's saying she was not silent. She did tell the authorities. And he said that the two women, Nancy and Christina, did not know each other prior to this. They just happened to meet on the lake. He said that it was getting windy and the water was getting rough, and Christina decided to turn her kayak around and go back to the shore when she happened to cross paths with Nancy Ng. And that was in the middle of the lake. It was in the area where the water went from light to dark, meaning it went from more shallow to deeper. Or I don't know if anything was shallow, but when it went black, that was like the really deep part. So they started talking, and Nancy, according to Christina, Nancy said she wanted to go swimming. And Christina advised her not to do that. It's very dangerous. Very, very bad idea. And Christina said, according to Gardner, quote, she said, "You shouldn't get in the water. It's too rough out there. I'm not getting in the water. Ms. Ng got in the water anyway," end quote. So Nancy got into the water with no life jacket. None of them had a life jacket. And her kayak started drifting away. So Christina paddled over to it and grabbed it and gave it back to Nancy, who was still in the water, and she let it get away from her a second time. So Christina turned her back and went to fetch it again. And when she turned back to return nothing she could do. So according to her lawyer, Christopher Gardner, quote, she realizes very quickly she couldn't help her. She rushed back to shore as quickly as she could to say what happened. There are witnesses who said they heard my client as she's paddling back, screaming for help. She was visibly shaken, visibly upset, and she was escorted by people from the yoga group to get calmed down. She was taken to the police station in Guatemala where she gave her statement, end quote. He said that she spoke to the authorities and tried to tell them where to look, but she wasn't familiar with the lake, so she really couldn't explain it very well. Quote, she was told she needed to talk to the police, and she went and gave a full statement to Guatemalan police. They told her there was nothing that could be done. Apparently, that lake is known for having people drown on it, end quote. Now, Nancy's sister, Nikki, said in an interview that she understands that Christina Blazek was reluctant to speak to her family, but she doesn't understand why she won't speak to the professionals, the searchers that they had hired. Nikki said she also thought it was suspicious that even though Christina said she spoke to the Guatemalan police, there was no record of that statement, and she and her family had received the entire police report from Guatemala. She said, quote, I do have all the files from the police station as well as the prosecutors, and there is no record of Christina's statement in there, end quote. In response to Nikki's statement, Christina's lawyer said that he has, quote, absolutely no idea about the professionalism of Guatemalan police officers. If that's true, I would really think that the Guatemalan authorities would be reaching out to us to talk to them. If the Guatemalan authorities or the FBI on behalf of Guatemalan authorities think there's information missing, they should contact me. I think it's untrue and a bunch of nonsense, end quote. He said that he has remained in contact with the FBI, and the only things that the agents have followed up with on him is the status of the death threats that Christina Blazek has been receiving since her name was released to the public. The FBI has not expressed to him that there is any sign of foul play regarding Nancy's disappearance. So Nikki was remorseful to hear that Christina was getting death threats, and she said, quote, it makes me really sad to hear about death threats. I feel awful. That's the last thing I want for Christina, but the only way we can get answers is through public pressure. We did give her chances. We emailed her twice without response. We had other students from the retreat reach out to her, but she said she didn't owe the family anything, end quote. According to the owner of the Black Wolf helicopters, he explained that he released their names to the public to prod them to cooperate because after a month of searching for Nancy's body, they really had no idea where they should be looking. He said, quote, if you look at the bay, it's like the size of a Super Bowl stadium. It's like, are we going left or are we going right? We absolutely knew nothing about where she went missing. In response to the release of the names, Christina's attorney said that she is suffering. He said, quote, there's a difference between suffering a loss and being a victim. The Ng family has suffered a tragic loss, but my client is a victim and it needs to stop, end quote. And he explained that the reason why Christina had not responded to the family was because she had been traumatized by the experience and needed time. Now remember, they a volunteer organization that specializes in search and recovery for drowning victims, began an underwater search for Nancy. Now, just to be clear, no human being can go all the way down to 11,000 feet, so they're not able to search the bottom of this lake physically. They can use equipment. And according to an update on the GoFundMe page, quote, "Unfortunately, the search has been hampered by a number of challenges. Unpredictable and strong winds have prevented the team from consistently getting out on the water. A cable issue has delayed their ability to continue searching the deepest parts of the lake. And most importantly, a lack of information has made it nearly impossible to narrow down the general search area," end quote. The Ng family hired a Guatemalan attorney. According to Nikki, quote, "The investigation revealed that a bribe had occurred that allowed Christina's statement to be omitted and to prevent her from being detained," end quote. I just want to go on the record here by saying that no one has been charged with any crime here, okay? And this alleged bribery is simply alleged, okay? Anyway, Christina's attorney denied that she had bribed anyone and called it nonsense. He also insisted that the group left Guatemala on their scheduled flight. They had not left early. On the day when Nancy disappeared, the kayaks had been rented from Kayak Guatemala, which is owned by Lee and Elaine Beale. According to Lee, quote, "When the group returned, there were only 8 that returned, but we could see in the distance, a distance of about 100 yards, 2 single kayaks. We watched them as they continued paddling until we lost sight of them," end quote. According to Elaine, quote, "I witnessed the survivor being ushered up the steps with the yoga instructor. She was clearly distressed and they didn't say a word to us," end quote. Lee said that no one in the group seemed to be interested in talking about anything about what had happened to Nancy. Quote, "It was almost like immediately clamming up and like we're not going to say anything," end quote. The Beals said that the next morning they called the hotel because they had not been paid by the yoga group. And the group was gone already. They had checked out. According to Elaine, quote, "I just don't understand that part of leaving within 8 hours, 12 hours of the accident," end quote. When the Beals were asked why no one was wearing a life jacket, they said that everyone who comes there is offered a life jacket, and no one in this group wanted one. But members who went on the retreat responded to this by saying they were never offered a life jacket. They didn't see any life jackets. One of them said they felt like they were being rushed out onto the water and they were given no instructions or precautions whatsoever. Now, weeks later, written reports would show that Lee Beals was out of the country on the day when Nancy went missing. He was not in the country. And his wife Elaine was at her home that day, which suggests that neither one of them was actually there at the lake witnessing anything that day. Go figure. And this is all in a written report taken by the Guatemalan police. In addition to that, the kayak that Nancy had used and the oar had eventually been found, but the Beals will not hand it over to authorities to be examined for evidence. as her family realizes as well, that is highly unlikely. Nancy is presumed to be dead, yet they still don't really know what happened that day, and her body has not been found. I truly, truly hope that she is found very, very soon. My heart goes out to her family and friends during this awful time. It seemed like they had such a beautiful, happy family, and that has all been taken away from them in the blink of an eye, and they don't even understand why or how. So what are the possibilities? What could have really happened that day? Could it be the way that Christina described it? I mean, sure it could. But why not just be forthcoming with that? What if that is what happened, why be so secretive? Okay, I believe that she went to the police station in Guatemala and gave her statement. Whatever happened to the statement, that's up for question. But why not come back and tell the story to the family? It just doesn't make any sense. If there was no foul play, then there would be no reason to be acting so suspiciously. I would understand acting upset, acting all kinds of ways, because this is such a hugely tragic accident. But to be so silent and cold to these people who are grieving in the most unbelievable way. How can you just turn your back on this family and refuse to explain to them what you saw? It makes no sense. Let's talk about the Beals for a moment, Lee and Elaine. Why do you suppose they claimed to have been there that day and witnessed those things that they talked about when the written report said that they weren't even there? I honestly do not know why that inconsistency exists. I really don't. Do I think that they have anything to do with Nancy's disappearance? Well, the only thing that I think is of concern is the fact that there were no life jackets. So if she had been wearing a life jacket, then none of this would have happened. But is there a law or any kind of rule in Guatemala that you have to give a life jacket, or you have to have them available? I don't know. Is this a legal issue? Or is it just that it would look bad for them? It would be bad publicity that they did not have any life jackets or did not offer life jackets to this group, which ultimately led to the death of Nancy. I don't think they have any other involvement here, as far as I can see. Okay, now what about Eddie? What could be his involvement? Why is he acting so suspiciously? Now, once again, I don't know. There is no charge here, okay? But could it be? Could it be? Now, a lot of people are saying this. Is it possible that there were some psychedelics involved on this yoga retreat? It's a typical kind of yoga thing, right? I mean, I'm not a yoga person, but isn't it a thing that sometimes they will use psychedelics during meditation? Perhaps he had given some to Nancy. Now her family says she does not use drugs, and I believe that, but you just never know in this kind of scenario. Peer pressure, or not even really pressure, but curiosity, that kind of thing. Maybe she had taken some, and that is why she wanted to jump into the deep part of the water and go swimming. I mean, what else would explain that? So, once Christina came back to shore, perhaps he spoke to her, and maybe be caught for using that. Maybe that would hurt her legal career. And if the body were to be found, then someone could test it and find the drugs in her system. So perhaps he was like, be quiet, don't say anything, let's just be quiet. Let's stick with this story and let's get out of here. So, I mean, I cannot think of any other possible scenario. I do not think that there was any, like, purposeful, foul play here. Like, I don't think that Christina pushed her in the water or anyone did anything like that. But there could definitely be another explanation that I haven't thought of. So anyway, I am going to end it here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found it to be thought-provoking. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and I hope you have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are.